Great job must give you meaning, purpose, connection, diversity, significance. Very few careers that go, hey, you can work from 10 to 2. There's almost no jobs. We fear having not made an impact in our life. Conventional therapy doesn't give people hope because it's out there and the brain only lives in the now.
We know that work is now the largest stress for most people. What advice can you give, and why are people finding work so stressful?
The biggest stresses at work are, first of all, the commute to work. I spend 3 hours of my day on the train, in the car, on the freeway, so the commute is very stressful. Secondly, I don't like my colleagues. My boss is very challenging. And thirdly, I don't have any flexibility. I've got to be there from 8 to 6. I can't take the day off for my kid's birthday. So it's feeling trapped. The commute, but the biggest thing by far is I don't have purpose. You know, we don't fear dying. We fear having not made an impact in our life. And so people want to say, I do something that matters. If you have a career where you think you're making an impact, you won't feel those things. And when I was a single parent, I felt I had the best life in the world because I worked from home. I worked around my daughter's schooling. I never had a commute. And one of the reasons I began to teach RTT to others is because I thought, wow, I've got this dream life. I don't commute. I don't have a boss. I don't have difficult colleagues. I can take time off and I can set my own hours, which is freedom. Set my own fees, more freedom, and have flexibility to leave. And for women, there are very few careers that go, hey, you can work from 10 to 2. There's almost no jobs. You can work 3 days a week. You can work in the evening from 7 to 10 when your kids are asleep. There's almost none. And therapy for a woman, especially, is one of the kindest, most rewarding jobs because, first of all, you have purpose, you have meaning, you have impact, you're making a difference, you're doing something that matters. Secondly, you're setting your own hours. It doesn't interfere with your family life at all. And thirdly, you don't have to deal with people you don't want to deal with. You're your own boss. So
it sounds a bit like the what we've seen over the last 10 years. People talk about digital
nomads, yeah.
But that seems to have been saturated. What you're saying is therapy and RTT, there's almost this movement of therapy nomads. You can be where you want, work the hours you want because
and you'll always be in demand.
There's a
all
billion
over
people,
the world.
according to World Health Organization, that need somebody like you.
Well, you can do therapy remotely on a screen. It's just as effective as face-to-face. And so a lot of digital nomads are traveling the world, but they're trying to get work as a designer. But in therapy, you know, I've got a girl who lives in Australia and all her clients are here in Dubai. Great job must give you meaning, purpose, connection, diversity, significance. You must grow, you must make a difference, and you must contribute. And it's very hard for a job to give you all of those things. The surgeon might go, hey, I got a lot of that, but it's very stressful. And police officer, I get a lot of that, but I'm worried about being stabbed every day. But as a therapist, you have all of those 9 things: certainty, diversity, connection, significance, growth, meaning, purpose, making a difference. You have all of them and more, and impact, of course. And so it's a job where you give and receive. You know, I'm giving so much to this company, but I receive a paycheck. As a therapist, you give and receive. People say to me, Marisa, you give so much, but I get so much back. I have the best job in the world. I'll never retire. Because when you can go to bed and go, well, someone in the world is living a better life because of a skill I possess, all of those needs are met constantly. And I can't really think of any other career that gives you all of those things every single day.
I understand that more now than ever. I used to, in my previous roles over the last 2 or so decades, I exchanged my time for money.
Of course.
Now my time is for impact.
Yeah, we used to call it sweat labour, yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that. So I think the idea that RTT, firstly, the people of the world, they need you. We need more therapists. There aren't enough therapists to deal with demand. But more than that, becoming an RTT therapist is the new nomad. It doesn't matter where you are in the world.
Yeah, you just need a screen. Anywhere in the world you can work.
How amazing.
And actually people say, but you know, isn't online therapy second best? No. I work with many, many troubled teenagers who will not go to a therapist, but on their screen in their bedroom, that's comfortable to them. Whereas many police officers, I couldn't go to a therapist, but if you're coming into my kitchen, I feel comfortable. So we've got this whole thing now. There are certain cultures. I couldn't go to a therapist. It's a weakness, but I like online therapy. And some people say, I don't have a therapist, I have a coach. It makes them feel different. So actually the online version is just as effective and sometimes even more popular. You don't have to get in your car, drive downtown, find a parking space, worry, oh my gosh, my meter's running out and I've got to come home again. So a 1 hour session is now nearly 3 hours and I've got to pay a babysitter.
Well, how ironic is this? I first thought about having therapy 15 years ago, and it was in the traditional sense. And the idea and the process of having to get therapy gave me anxiety.
Of course.
So the first 3 times I never even got through the door.
Isn't that amazing?
Whereas now I can be in the comfort of my home.
Yeah.
I can prepare myself, and I would rather be doing it through that digital experience rather than, like you say, having to get up, drive, park, and then physically have to walk through that door, sit in a therapy center. I did it 3 times. I stood up and walked out. Me, a grown man.
And that's great for the client, but it's also great for the therapist who also has to commute to work, find somewhere to park, be gone for 8 hours. And in between clients, it's just going to a coffee bar. Working from home is like, okay, in between clients, I can do a bit of yoga. I can put the laundry on, whatever it feels like doing. So it's a win-win for everybody.
I kind of understand why with talk therapy, you sometimes might lose that connection digitally. But why is it that RTT transfers itself so well, even in a digital experience?
Well, in therapy, you want to be really involved with your client. So let's imagine I'm on a screen, you're on a screen. I can just see your face and maybe your body. You can see mine. And actually, we've got that eye contact. I'm not focusing on the traffic going past or what's going on. It's actually better, but also RTT is very rapid. It's called Rapid Transformational Therapy. And so that traditional, how are you today? How do you feel? Well, actually, I feel the same as I felt in the last 10 sessions. I'm just talking to you. RTT is very fast. It's find the pattern, understand the pattern, change the pattern. Within 10 minutes of your session beginning, you'll be finding the pattern. And it's so compelling and so fascinating. It's a bit like reading an engrossing book where you can't wait to get onto the next page. So both the therapist and the client are engrossed. The word cure comes from the word curious. And we teach all our therapists to be so curious. Someone is showing you their life story, and you have the honor and the privilege of getting to change the next chapters. And so because it's not talk therapy, it's interesting and compelling for the therapist and the client. That's the trick, that the therapist is engrossed in your story and you're engrossed in their ability to find your story. So it isn't like, oh, I'm just talking about what I did last week or my mum or what happened when I was 11. I'm going back over and over again. It doesn't really work anymore.
Well, as you know, I had my first RTT session before I came in to see you because I wanted to experience it. I was out of the country and I had to do it over a screen. And I had my AirPods in and actually experiencing RTT, being stood at the top of those 10 steps, having you in my head, it was actually more powerful.
Of course.
Because when I was in that state and I went into, the hypnosis and the regression and reframing, I was in a trance. So for me, it was and then I've had it done in person. When I had it done and I had my headphones in, it was, I want to say intrusive, but in a very powerful way.
It was engrossing and compelling. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I find that fascinating, and I've never experienced therapy that took over me so quickly and took me back to the trauma that I didn't realize was manifesting and the symptoms I was experiencing. And I didn't even realize they existed. So is this why you've decided to launch Inner Belief and give a home for your amazing RTT therapists?
Yeah, we have almost 1 billion people now suffering with depression. And many of them will say, there's a waiting list of a year for me to get a therapist. And I've got to see them every week for a year. Which feels very disheartening when you can say, look, we can see somebody today and you might be better in a week. You know, it isn't true that change takes a long time. All these expressions, leopards can't change its spots, are not helping. You can change like that. In fact, we get to change twice every day. Change a thought, which changes a behavior, which changes a feeling. And so if you said, hey, I'm so depressed and I don't believe there's a solution, and even if I do, it's a year ahead and then it's years of therapy. And you know, one of the problems is the brain is very bad at future pacing. If you understand the brain, it doesn't do that. If you say to a kid, like we're going to Greece, they go, we're there now, 5 minutes after you got on the plane. We're driving to, are we there now, 5 minutes after you leave the driveway? If you say to someone who's depressed, you'll be better next year, it doesn't work because depressed people, bullied people can't see a result because the brain is very poor at future pacing.
Yeah.
So RTT is now, it's not every Tuesday, and maybe in a year's time you might start to have a glimmer of hope, or every Wednesday, and perhaps in 6 months stuff might shift. We don't have 6 months. Nobody would say someone with a broken leg, 6 months you'll be out of pain. And we should look at therapy like we go to the emergency room. If I turn up in the ER, I have one belief, you're going to get me out of pain today. And so I created a therapy that gets you out of pain today. And so someone who's depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, unhappy, it gives them hope immediately. Oh, there's a technique that can get me out of pain today. I can go within a week, I probably won't feel depressed. Yeah, there is. And so, you know, there's no such thing as false hope. We have to give people hope. And conventional therapy doesn't give people hope because it's out there. And the brain only lives in the now. It doesn't even understand what out there is.
And now if people want Marisa Peer therapy, they can go to innerbelief.com.
Yeah.
And that is a selection of RTT therapists
that were trained personally by me, handpicked by me, every bit as good as me. Some of them are better. So
there you go. When we're at your shows, when we're at the big theatre earlier this year, everybody was coming up to me and saying, how do I get therapy? How do I get therapy? And now we've got a solution.
Yeah, we've got a solution. And lots of solutions. You know, it isn't just finding a therapist that niches in your area. We're offering you everything you could possibly need. It's all at your fingertips. If you like this, please like and subscribe. You can help me and I can help. We all want to grow together. And in liking and subscribing, you'll get more notifications of more stuff to help you expand. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.